Okay, so to get your iPad set up to transfer to your managed Apple ID account, you need to do a few things first. So the first thing I want to point out is if you open your settings app and you tap on your name, you're probably going to see underneath your name your own personal Apple ID. So it may be at Gmail or something like that if it's a personal email, or you may have created an account with your at dunlin.k12.in.us email. What you need to do is make sure that you know the password for this email, because in a little bit we're going to log out of this. So go ahead and write down this email address that you see right now underneath your name and whatever you think the password is for it. Remember that Apple passwords always require a capital letter and some numbers, and they're 8 characters long, if that helps you. So before we do the sign out process, though, you need to make sure that you have everything saved on the iPad and not in the iCloud so that when you sign out, you don't lose anything. So if you go to your Files app and you tap on iCloud Drive, you'll notice there's iCloud Drive or On My iPad. We want to get everything to On My iPad. So I'm going to go to iCloud Drive, and then I'm going to tap Select in the top right corner. And I am going to select the files. So there's a file there, there's a keynote there, this document here, and I also have something in Pages, but I need to open the individual folder. So I'm going to hit Move, and then I'm going to choose On My iPad, and you can just choose a folder that you want them to go in. It doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to hit Copy. When I go to On My iPad, you'll see that I have 1 item in a GarageBand folder and 5 items in my Pages folder, and all of my items that are in my iCloud Drive, it's okay if they disappear when I sign out because I have them saved on my iPad. You'll want to transfer them back to your iCloud Drive once you've signed into the new account. So I'm going to hit my home button. The other place you might want to check is your Notes app. If you have notes in here, you'll want to make sure that you have any notes moved to the iCloud or off of the iCloud and onto your iPad. And so you can create a new folder and you can move notes to your iPad as well, and off of your iCloud account. So just keep that in mind. So once you have everything moved and it's on the iPad and not on iCloud Drive, you're going to go back to the settings app, tap on your name, and you're going to want to sign out. Okay, so it should be at the bottom, and you're going to hit sign out. And when you do, it's going to ask you to put in your password for that Apple ID. So this will be a good test of whether or not you remember what it is. And if you do, write that down because you're going to need to sign back into this later. So when you sign out, if you use your iPad for any sort of messaging or email, you're going to want to keep a copy of your contacts. If you use keychain passwords or you want to remember Safari bookmarks, you can slide those over as well. I'm just going to do contacts, and then you're going to hit sign out. It's going to ask if you're sure, and you're going to hit sign out again. And so now that we're signed out, we're actually going to sign back in, but we're going to sign in this time with the managed Apple ID. So this should be the one that is at appleid.mydunland.org. So it'll be your first initial and your last name. This is just an example student that I'm using right now, but you guys will use first initial, last name, and then at appleid.mydunland.org. You should have already set up a password for this. If you did not, you'll need to set that up ahead of time before you even go through this process. So that was in the email. So now it's going to sign into my iCloud. And you can, if you wanted your contacts to come over, I'm going to choose merge. And now you're going to see that this is signed in to iCloud. But we want to do something else because the managed iCloud accounts don't allow you to download your apps. So that's where I said you needed to remember that email address and password from before. So we are going to have one more step. So I'm going to tap on iTunes and App Store. And then I'm going to tap on my name up here at the top, and I'm going to hit sign out. And then I'm going to go back once, and you'll notice now it says iTunes and App Store is off. So if I tap on it again, it's going to say, do I want to set this up with this email address? And I don't. So I'm going to hit not Willie. Yours will say your name. And then this is where you're going to sign back in with that personal Apple ID that you created, the one that you wrote down that was originally signed in here. And it may ask you for a two-factor authentication, which will be a text message to your phone. And then once it verifies, it will sign you into the iTunes and App Store so that you can still download your own books and apps, and you'll have access to any of the apps or anything that you've already purchased or downloaded. And so now you'll see at the top of the screen that I have my iCloud as my managed Apple ID and my App Store as my personal Apple ID. So now that I have it set up this way, I can now go back to my Files app, take everything that was on my iPad, and I can move it back to my